I never expected it would be him who betrayed me. Knight Eric, my love, the man I'd given my heart to and trusted with every secret, locked iron shackles around my wrists with such cruelty, as if I were a monster rather than the woman he'd kissed just last night. Cold metal bit into my skin, and I felt the magic inside me tremble, trying to break free, but the runes on the manacles crushed it with one agonizing blow. Then I was imprisoned in the Tower of Sinners, the Order of Light's dungeon from which no one had ever returned. Eric, what are you doing? My voice shook, but I forced myself to stand straight, refusing to show fear. His face, so familiar with its sharp cheekbones and hard jawline, remained impassive, as if carved from stone. The snow-white cloak of the Order of Light billowed behind him, and I suddenly realized how blind I'd been. He'd always served the Order. I was merely a tool. "We need your gift," he said coldly, shoving me forward down the stone corridor. "You'll heal the prisoner, or you'll die here." I stumbled, but kept my balance. Torches on the walls flickered dimly, casting grotesque shadows on the damp stones. The air grew heavier with each step downward, saturated with the smell of dampness and something else. Something ancient, dark, almost tangible. My heart pounded so loudly I was certain Eric could hear it. "What prisoner?" I whispered, though part of me didn't want to know the answer. Eric stopped before a massive door covered in glowing symbols that contained magical power. His hand fell to his sword hilt, and only now did I notice how tense his shoulders were. He was afraid. Of the Order, or of what lay behind that door? "A Fallen Seraphim," he answered, and something like reverence rang in his voice. "Lord Gabriel, you will heal him until he recovers enough strength to fuel the Order with energy. That is your only purpose from now on." The door opened with a dull screech, and I was shoved inside. The last thing I heard before it slammed shut behind me was Eric's whisper, "I'm sorry," but there was no regret in his eyes, only duty. The dungeon turned out to be a small cage of cold stone, barely lit by dim light emanating from somewhere above. The shackles shone with a golden light, and the chains broke. Now my magic was free. I looked up and saw a magical crystal embedded in the ceiling. It pulsed with weak, sickly luminescence, like a dying star, and in that deathly light, I saw him for the first time. Gabriel. He sat in the center of the chamber, in the middle of a ritual circle drawn directly on the stone floor. Runes glowed with dull silver, writhing like living serpents, and they emanated a sense of something ancient and merciless. His wrists and ankles were locked in massive shackles, attached by short chains to iron rings in the floor. He couldn't even stand, only sit in this humiliating position. His wings, once magnificent, now broken, mutilated, without a single feather, only dark skin stretched over sharp bones, were spread to the sides, as if pinned by the invisible force of the circle itself. I traced the streams of energy with my eyes. They flowed from his body, rose upward through the air in glowing threads, and disappeared into the crystal in the ceiling. The circle drank his power, and the crystal greedily devoured it, feeding on his agony. I gasped. He slowly raised his head, and I met completely black eyes. No whites, no pupils. Just bottomless darkness that seemed to look straight into my soul. His face was perfect, almost inhumanly beautiful, but tormented. Sharp cheekbones, pale skin, dried blood at his lips. Dark hair fell across his forehead in damp strands. "Another one of the Order's toys." His voice was low, hoarse with pain, but full of contempt. "How sweet. They sent a witch healer to prolong my suffering." I clenched my fists, feeling anger flare inside me. Not at him. At Eric. At the Order. At myself for being so foolish. "I'm not here by choice," I answered sharply. I was betrayed by someone I trusted. So you can keep your contempt to yourself, Seraphim." His lips twitched in something like a smirk, and it was so unexpected that I froze. "Then we're in the same boat, witch. Except you can walk around your cage, and I'm chained to this cursed circle so tightly I can't even stand." I looked at him again, at how the short chains prevented him from rising, how the circle's runes glowed brighter every time he tried to move, sucking out even more power. His body was tense from the constant effort of simply maintaining this position, muscles trembling from exhaustion. The crystal in the ceiling pulsed in rhythm with his breathing, and each breath seemed to feed that vile glow. Something inside me faltered. "How long have you been here?" I asked more quietly. Gabriel closed his eyes, and for a moment I thought he wouldn't answer, but then he exhaled. 73 years, or more. I stopped counting when I realized I'd never get out. 73 years in this cage. 73 years of torture in the darkness of the Order of Light. I didn't know how much time had passed. Days blurred into one endless existence in the dungeon, where the only sound was our breathing and the quiet hum of the ritual circle, continuously draining life from Gabriel. The runes pulsed with measured rhythm, and the crystal in the ceiling answered them with weak flashes, greedily absorbing the stolen power. Twice a day the iron door would open, and a faceless guard would toss in a piece of stale bread and a flask of water. For me, they gave Gabriel nothing. "Don't you need food?" I asked on the first evening, chewing bread and feeling guilty. "Seraphim feed on energy," he answered without opening his eyes. "But here I have no access to it. The circle takes everything I have. So I'm just slowly dying, very slowly." I set the bread aside. "The Order wants me to heal you." "I know." His voice was empty. "They want me strong enough so they can drain even more from me before I die." He finally opened his eyes and looked at me. In this darkness, his black eyes seemed even more bottomless. "The Order wants to stretch out my agony, so don't do it, witch. Let me die." But I couldn't. Not because I was afraid the Order would execute me, though fear was certainly there, but because something inside me, my gift, my cursed healer's essence, screamed at the sight of his pain. Dark creatures had always drawn my gift more strongly than humans. I felt their wounds more acutely, more deeply. And Gabriel, he was something greater, ancient, powerful, and broken. I stood and approached him. He tensed when I reached out toward his chest, where the circle's runes were drawing power from him, leaving dark marks on his skin that resembled burns. "What are you doing?" he growled. "My job," I answered and let magic flow through my fingers. Warmth spread across my palms, the golden-green glow that always accompanied my gift. I felt his pain, sharp, cutting, endless, and gasped at its intensity. But I didn't retreat. I directed my power into his ravaged body, healing the internal tears where the circle's magic corroded him from within, soothing inflamed nerves. Gabriel shuddered, and his breathing quickened. Then he suddenly grabbed my wrist with his free hand, the one that wasn't chained tightly to the floor. "Stop!" he hissed. "You don't understand what you're doing." "I'm healing you." "No." His fingers tightened, but not painfully. "You're making me stronger. And when I'm stronger, the Order will drain even more from me through this cursed circle. You're prolonging my agony, witch." I met his gaze and saw something new there. Not contempt. Despair. "Then maybe," I said slowly, "I'll make you strong enough to break free, to shatter the circle." Silence hung between us, heavy and full of unspoken words. "You're insane. This circle has held me for 73 years. It's created with ancient magic." "Perhaps," I agreed, "but I'm not going to stay here forever, and neither are you." After that night, something changed. Gabriel no longer asked me to stop. I healed him every day, slowly, carefully, so the Order wouldn't notice changes that were too rapid. But I could feel his body responding. The internal damage from constant energy drainage was closing. His breathing became steadier. Even his wings, mutilated and featherless, stopped trembling so violently under the circle's pressure. And we talked. At first, it was just short exchanges of barbs. He called me stubborn witch. I called him insufferable martyr. But gradually, the walls between us began to crumble. He told me about his fall, how he'd questioned heaven's orders and been cast down to earth, stripped of his divine power, but not his pride. The Order found him weakened and chained him, placed him in this circle, turned him into a power source. I told him about myself, about growing up in a village where witches were feared, but tolerated as long as they were useful. About meeting Eric, a young knight who swore he loved me despite everything. About how I believed him. "Men lie," Gabriel said one evening when I was leaning against the wall across from him, too exhausted to sit up straight. "Especially those who wear white cloaks. They believe they serve a higher purpose, and that justifies any cruelty." "You're a man too," I pointed out. His lips curved in something like a smile, the first real smile I'd seen. "I'm a seraphim. Or was one. Right now, I don't know what I am." "You're a prisoner," I said quietly. "Like me." His black eyes lingered on my face longer than usual, and I felt a strange warmth spreading through my chest. Not from magic, from something else. "Emma." He spoke my name for the first time, and it sounded like a prayer on his lips. "If we try to escape and fail, they'll kill you. If we stay here, I'll die more slowly," I answered. "I'm not going to rot in this cage, Gabriel. I'm getting out. And you're coming with me." He didn't answer, but I saw determination kindle in his eyes. The next day, I continued healing him, pushing myself to the limit until I collapsed from exhaustion. And I also began studying the ritual circle's runes, trying to understand how to break it. The breakthrough came on the 13th night. I hadn't been counting days consciously, but my body remembered every moment in this dungeon. Each time I gave Gabriel my power, I felt myself weakening, but I couldn't stop. My gift seemed to have found its true purpose in him. That night, I was healing him as usual when I suddenly felt something click inside him. His own power, which I'd been restoring for so long, had finally reached a critical point. Enough to begin resisting the circle. Gabriel gasped, and his body arched in the chains. Light poured from him, not golden like angels, but kike, crimson, pulsing like a heartbeat. The runes on the floor flickered in alarm, struggling against his power, trying to suppress it. But for the first time in 73 years, they met resistance. "Emma," he exhaled, and his voice sounded different, stronger. "I feel it. I feel my power. It's returning." I stepped back, watching as one of the runes on the floor began to dim, unable to withstand the flow of energy. The symbols on the walls flashed brighter, and somewhere far above, a siren began to sound. "They know," I whispered, and panic squeezed my throat. "Gabriel, they're coming!" His gaze darted to the door, then to me, and in that second I saw a determination that hadn't been there before. "Then it's time," he said, and jerked his hands. The chains holding his wrists began to glow from the strain. His muscles tensed, and I heard metal groaning under his strength. Another rune on the floor went dark, and the flow of energy rising to the ceiling crystal faltered. Gabriel screamed, not from pain, but from fury, and the chain on his right arm shattered. He was free, halfway. The door shook. Voices outside grew louder. "Free me completely," Gabriel commanded, extending his free hand toward me. "Now. Your magic and my power. Together, we can destroy this circle." I didn't hesitate. I grabbed his palm, and the moment we touched, I felt an explosion. Our magic merged, my golden healing and his dark might, creating something completely new. Energy surged through me, burning, making me scream, but I held on. I directed all my power into the remaining chains and into the circle itself, into its cursed runes. They exploded. The stone floor cracked, the runes scattered into glowing dust, and the crystal in the ceiling burst with a deafening ring. Gabriel fell to his knees, freed for the first time in 73 years. His wings, though broken, straightened, filling with power. He raised his head and I saw his black eyes blaze with dark flame. The door flew open. Knights of the Order burst inside, and at the front of them all was Eric. Our eyes met, and I saw shock in his. "Emma, get away from him!" he shouted, drawing his sword. But I didn't move. Instead, I stepped forward, placing myself between Gabriel and the knights. "No," I said firmly. "You're the ones who need to back off." Eric froze, and something like pain crossed his face, but it quickly changed to cold determination. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said without lowering his sword. "This monster used you. He made you free him so he could kill us all." Gabriel stood behind me. I felt the power emanating from him, dark, ancient, almost tangible. But when his hand touched my shoulder, the touch was surprisingly gentle. "I didn't use her, Knight." His voice sounded low and dangerous. "Unlike you." Eric gripped his sword hilt tighter, and I saw the other knights preparing to attack. There were 5 of them. We had no chance in a fair fight, even with Gabriel's restored power. But I wasn't going to surrender. "You betrayed me, Eric," I said, and my voice sounded firmer than I felt. "You made me believe in your love, then locked me here like a tool. The Order tortured him for 73 years, draining his life through that cursed circle. And you call this serving the light?" "He's fallen!" one of the knights shouted. "He's dangerous!" "More dangerous than you," I answered. "I see what you did to him. Your runes, your chains, your justice. You're worse than any demon." Eric flinched as if I'd struck him, and maybe I had, with words he couldn't refute. "Emma, please." His voice became quieter, almost pleading. "Come back. I don't want to hurt you." "You already have," I answered and felt Gabriel tense behind me, ready to attack. Then everything happened fast. Eric stepped forward, and Gabriel pushed me aside, lunging ahead. His wing, broken but still deadly, struck the nearest knight's shield, throwing him against the wall. Another swung his sword, but Gabriel was faster. He caught the blade with his bare hand. Blood flowed, but he didn't let go, wrenched the sword away and hurled it into the corner. Eric rushed toward me, but I summoned my magic. Not healing, but its other side. The dark side. The one I'd always feared. I directed it into the ground beneath his feet, and the stones exploded, forcing him to retreat. "You chose a monster over me," Eric hissed, and in his eyes I saw not love, but fury. "I chose freedom," I answered, and felt Gabriel's arm wrap around my waist. "Hold on," he growled in my ear, and his wings, despite their injuries, swept upward. We took flight. It wasn't the graceful soaring of an angel, but a desperate, uneven ascent. Gabriel hadn't fully recovered after decades in the circle, but his strength was enough to break out of the dungeon, to fly through corridors, dodging magical arrows and knights' shouts. Light appeared ahead. Real light. Not a magical crystal, but daylight pouring through a ventilation grate. Gabriel headed toward it, and his body blazed with dark energy again. The grate shattered into pieces, and we burst outside into the blinding day. I squeezed my eyes shut against the sun I hadn't seen in so long. Wind whipped at my face, and I held Gabriel tighter, feeling us gain altitude. "The Order's fortress," sirens wailed, but we were already far away. We were free. Gabriel flew several more miles before his strength began to fade. I felt his body trembling from exertion, felt his breathing becoming uneven. Wings that had been bound for so long and exhausted by the circle's magic couldn't sustain a long flight. "Gabriel," I called. "We need to land. You can't keep going." "A little further," he rasped, but I could see him paling. A forest appeared ahead, dense, Gak's perfect cover. Gabriel headed there, losing altitude faster than he wanted. We fell between the trees, and I barely managed to summon magic to soften our landing. We crashed onto moss, tangled in each other. Gabriel groaned, and I immediately rolled toward him, checking his wounds. His wings were torn even worse, blood seeping from old wounds. Dark marks from the circle's runes were still visible on his skin. They would remind him of his captivity for a long time. His face was haggard, but triumph burned in his eyes. "We did it," he whispered, and his lips curved in a genuine smile. "Which, we did it." I laughed, hysterically with relief, unable to contain myself. 73 years. He'd been imprisoned for 73 years in that cursed circle, and I'd helped him break free in mere weeks. "Yeah," I answered, feeling tears welling in my eyes. "We did it." His hand rose and touched my cheek, wiping away a tear. The touch was so gentle I froze. "You're crying?" "I don't know," I admitted. "It's just, I was alone for so long. And then you. And now we're free, but the Order will hunt us, and I don't know where to go next." Gabriel pulled me closer, and I didn't resist, letting myself lean against his chest. His heart beat slower than a human's, but steady, soothing. "Then we'll find the way together," he said quietly. "You saved me, Emma. You destroyed the circle that held me for 73 years. I'm in your debt." We stayed in the forest all evening. I healed his wounds as much as I could, and the marks from the circle's runes began to gradually fade under my hands. He told me about places we could go, about distant, unexplored lands and continents beyond the ocean, where even the all-powerful Order couldn't find us. For the first time in a long while, I felt needed. I felt love. And when night fell over the forest, I fell asleep in his embrace, knowing I would never again be anyone's tool. I was free. We both were.